So our guest today is Craig Wortmann, and I'm super excited to have Craig with me on the show. Of all the sales leaders that I can think of, Craig has got to have one of the most extensive views of the discipline. And that's because he's studied it academically, he's taught it at some of the top business schools in the world, and having been a seller himself and having advised at top sales organizations, he knows what it takes as a practitioner and as someone within the academic side. So I'm super excited to talk with Craig today to talk about his background, and I think everyone's going to find it compelling how he went from one of the top sellers at IBM to running his own company to then teaching one of the top classes in the country specifically on entrepreneurial sales. Since then, he's actually started his own sales consultancy, has founded the Kellogg Sales Institute at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, which is one of the only, I think, if not only, top institution to offer an institute studying sales. And we're going to talk about what Craig is learning there, what he's seeing, and really trying to figure out what makes sales organizations great and what are those behaviors that go into high performing selling. Now, Craig and I met about 2 years ago, and we were introduced because of some of the work that Rise had done with Northwestern football and some of the research we had published showing sleep massively improving performance for professional athletic teams. Craig wondered if we might partner with him and a Fortune 200 sales team here in Chicago to understand how sleep affects sales metrics and performance. And not just the metrics and the numbers and revenue, but how does it impact the human side of selling? How does it affect things like burnout? How is the frontline and managers going to view the organization? And what's the role that leadership plays in promoting human performance on their teams? And so we'll be able to share and talk about some of that research, and we'll talk about what Craig is doing at the Kellogg Sales Institute, what they're learning, and how amidst all the things you might focus on as a sales leader, why is it that you should care about sleep? So I'm excited to dig in with him today. And of course, before we do jump into today's show, I want to note that for everyone listening, Craig is an early investor in Rise. And it came out of that first meeting we had with him when he was so excited about the promise that sleep would have in the discipline of sales. So I'm super proud to call Craig an investor, a friend, a coach. Craig, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thank you. That was a lucky day for me when we met. I am super excited to be with you. And I'm really pumped for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's been a long time coming, but here we are, yeah. And glad we could carve the time. So I want to start the conversation. I think, as I opened up, what's so interesting about you in particular, at least to me, is that you have one of the widest views of the discipline. You're not just running a sales organization. You're not just day-to-day hitting numbers. You're really taking an expansive view about what the discipline of sales should be and what goes into repeatable outcomes. So what was your background? Tell me about how you got from, where it was growing up all the way to, now starting and founding the Kellogg Sales Institute.
Yeah, it's a circuitous route. And it's, I have, Jeff, it's been so much fun because I've gotten to see this thing called sales from a lot of different perspectives over the years. So as you suggest, I was 21 years old working on Capitol Hill for a congressperson and took a shot at getting a job in IBM literally because I missed my family in Chicago. That was my precipitating factor. And one thing led to another. Again, luck enters into all of life, as you well know. And I got an offer from IBM. So that sort of started me on my sales journey a long, long time ago. That was, 340 years ago.
And did you even know you wanted to get into sales? I mean, were you like, on Capitol Hill, did you know this was a thing? I mean, what was going through your mind?
No, I wanted to get home. So I love, and I still love Washington. I'm such a nerd about all the weird stuff happening in DC, but I wanted to get home. I miss my parents, I miss my family. And so I really wanted to get back home and knew some folks at IBM and just got some lucky breaks and had an interview that went really well. So they started me on this career. And what I always say, Jeff, is, IBM took not dumb, but I always say like a dumb, scared kid out of Capitol Hill. And dumb, I mean, like I didn't know business. I didn't know technology. I certainly didn't know sales. Yeah. And they trained me. And that was magical because a long time ago, which this is, of course, IBM was known for what they call sales school. And it was 1 year, believe it or not. It was a year investment in these crazy young people. And they invested in me. And what I always say is I am forever thankful to IBM. I will love that company until the day I die because of what they gave me. Because they took a completely unformed piece of clay and they helped me learn business. Then they helped me learn technology. Then they helped me learn sales. And then they coached me, some days within an inch of my life to be, good first, less than average, then, I got better as time went on. And that, just was consistent coaching experience. And, I look back on that time very fondly, although, I had some bad times there too, where I just was terrible at what I did. And now I look back from the advantage of all these other weird perspectives I have. And I really think a lot about the really interesting things they did to coach us on the granular elements of, living a good life and having that sort of, in fact is a bad word, but you know what I mean, is sort of infuse into our selling motions. Huh. And I think about that almost every day that goes by. Even all these years later.
I mean, two things of that, two parts about that story just strike me as just so interesting to dig into. One is this is, you were saying what, in the 80s?
Yeah, well, I'm old. I'm not quite that old, but late 80s, early 90s.
Okay,
yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s. And they were talking about that how you lived mattered for how you sold. That was like a thing that they believed?
Oh, yeah. So IBM, as many people know, and like the Googles of today and those, Jeff, I mean, IBM had and has a very, very strong culture. And, the first thing they did is they told stories of the founders, Tom Watson, and made us read his book and all that sort of stuff. And, at the time, being a young person, not knowing X from Y, I sort of rolled my eyes like, okay, we'll read the founder's book.
Right.
And now I look back, like that was really, really smart because they wanted us to be good people first, and they wanted us to listen to customers, and then they wanted us to sell. And it was kind of in that order. And really that was, I literally did not hit the front of my brain until, I don't know, 10 years later, when I started to grow up a little bit. And I started to realize that was really, really sort of sneaky in a good way and wise that they did that. Because, we were very young and, we weren't dumb, but we were just young and inexperienced. Yeah. And they put a lot of stock into us. I mean, they put a tremendous amount of money into us trying to help us get good. What we now call get good at getting great.
Right. I like that a lot. So it just strikes me as, and again, I haven't been a student of the game nearly as long as you have, but just so fascinating that one of maybe the top institutions that brought sales training to bear, IBM, led with, you need to be a good person first, then you need to listen to your customers, then sell, in that order. And that's just so interesting because it feels like it's coming back full cycle, this sort of notion of human-centered selling. But, years and years later, here it is 2020, and so you're saying, no, this is actually how it's been. And somehow maybe along the way we got confused. I mean, what in your mind, as you see that phase of sales, is that coming back? Is that where it is today? I mean, you work with a lot of different organizations. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, that's a really great impact question, Jeff. So, the honest answer is it's sort of all over the place. Here's what we're trying to create. So I'm gonna sort of be Kellogg Sales Institute centric here for a second, because look, like any industry, like any functional role in any business, there are trends, right? So, right now, one of the big trends we're seeing is the challenger sale. And I have, a bunch of thoughts about that. And that's, that's maybe a topic for a different day, where we need to show up and challenge our customers. What we're trying to create at the Kellogg Sales Institute, and we're helping some of the world's most powerful companies, and we are so lucky to be able to fight above our weight and be called in to do that. We call it creating a strong, positive, and powerful sales culture. So that's what I brought forward, 25, 30 years later from my experience at IBM, helping companies build a strong, positive, and powerful sales culture. And what that actually means day to day, hour by hour, meeting by meeting, is we're trying to help people find their best rhythm for themselves first and be the best person they can be and get good at getting great, and then surround them with coaches. We have a very expansive view of what coaching looks like. In other words, everyone is a coach. I mean, you literally have coached me. I've coached you. The hierarchical or the relationship doesn't matter as long as there is a relationship there. Doesn't matter if you're my boss, you're my employee, you're my peer, or if you're just a great entrepreneur, I will seek coaching from you because you're a great entrepreneur. You have things to teach me. In the academic parlance, K. Anders Ericsson, the guy who sadly passed away recently, but wrote a great book called Peak. And the Malcolm Gladwell book, Jeff Outliers, is actually about K. Anders Ericsson. What he says is great coaches have a mental representation of what great looks like. You know, you're a great entrepreneur. You have a mental representation of what great entrepreneurship looks like, how to build a business. Why can't, even though I'm older than you, why can't I seek coaching from you? So we have this expansive view. Now, that only takes us so far, because the other really brilliant thing that IBM did is they made us practice. And that sounds really simple, and it's not. Because like elite athletes practice, they made us practice, but it wasn't just practice. It was practice at the granular level of what we call knowledge, skill, and discipline. So they teach us how a microprocessor works. That's knowledge.
Yeah.
Then they make us role play how to talk about it with a customer. That's not knowledge, that's skill.
Yeah.
And then they made us do it over and over again, and that's discipline. And it was just fascinating. And again, we rolled our eyes at the time, 22 years old, like, whatever, I'm doing this again. And then we realized, like, months later, I'm actually really good at this. They made me good at this. Like, I can get on that track and I can run it fast.
Yeah.
Right? Or I can shoot that basket. I can make it reliably. It's crazy.
Right. And you don't even have to think about it. It allows you to be able to respond in the moment to whatever actually is going on beyond just the nuts and bolts of knowledge, skill, discipline.
Yeah. I mean that's, yes. Yeah. And I don't know if I really answered your question, to sort of bring it full circle. A strong, positive, and powerful sales culture means that we're really good at the skills and disciplines of selling, and the most critical ones to make sure that we're listening and hearing clients, and sort of, and I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but being the best people we can be in that moment. And that means listening, empathizing, asking great questions, helping them, what we call unpack, not just their functional needs, but their social and emotional needs, so they can make progress in their lives, whether that's my solution or your solution. I should be that person in the room saying, you know what, we're getting to the point, Jeff, in this conversation where it's becoming clear to me that my solution actually is not the thing that will help you make the most progress on this problem, but I know who is.
Yeah.
We say that's the second best outcome that a salesperson can have, is not just saying I'm not the guy or I'm not the gal. It's saying I'm not the guy, Jeff, but you know what? I'm going to give you 3 recommendations of people who will kill that for you.
Right.
That's
and that's
selling.
So exciting. Yeah. That's what really good, and it's what's so interesting about it to me is, we get on the phone with all sorts of EVPs doing a lot of cold emails, a lot of cold outreach, and such different views about how to do sales well. Some have a human-centered view like you do. Some they're just running it by the numbers. And I think that's part of it, but just fascinating to hear. What's new to me fully is that IBM was onto this, back when you started a while back. Yeah. And
look, I've got some availability bias and some confirmation and selection bias here, because I was an IBMer and I was proud to be an IBMer as a young person, but they really were onto it. And, now, fast forward to today, there's a bunch of companies who are really getting this, and it's really exciting to watch them understand like this. And it's all, as you alluded to in your wonderful introduction, what's also fun is to watch the elite business schools, the elite of the elite, wake up to the fact that sales is a discipline like marketing, finance, operations, strategy that you would find in any business school in the 1950s.
Yeah. So
right. And here we are in 2020. And it's like, we are waking up to like, this thing is multiple. This has got multiple angles. It's complex. It's based on psychology, social science, neuroscience. Sales is as much psychology as any other discipline.
Well, and so that's one of the questions that I definitely want to get to, which is, why has it been neglected in the top business schools? I mean, Kellogg is still the first one, and it's 2020. It's not like Harvard has their Sales Institute. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, and I want to be careful here. We're not, we may be first, maybe among the elites, but there have been people talking about this for a long time, and I give them full credit as the pioneers. We're following in their lead. I have to be careful here, because as a career salesperson, this could come across with a big fat chip on my shoulder, and I'll try not to do that. But I think we have traditionally looked at sales as a trade school thing. It's a lesser of equals. It's this manipulative art where I'm reaching behind you and pulling your wallet out of your pocket. I mean, it's just tragic that we look at it like this.
Yeah.
Sales is about helping people make progress in their lives, period. And being the best we can be moment by moment. And then, here's the chip on my shoulder. We also drive revenue. Sales
Yep.
is what brings Kellogg students. Sales is what brings Google billions of dollars of revenue. It's sales. You can call it whatever you want to escape that yucky feeling you get when you use the word sales. I get really tough about that. Call it what it is. It's called selling. There's nothing
Yep.
wrong with that. I'm selling every day.
Yep.
So, there's nothing wrong with that as long as my mindset is right. And again, going all the way back to IBM, as long as my mindset is right and I'm truly not that person that's reaching behind and trying to manipulate you, but we hold sales to this double standard, because do attorneys manipulate people? Do
Right.
marketers manipulate people? Do entrepreneurs, look at Theranos, do entrepreneurs
Right.
manipulate people for ill? Every single day, everywhere, all around the world.
Yep.
But we salespeople are the ones that's like, oh, used cars, yuck.
Yeah.
Right. That's, we have to wear that. And so the beginning of every conversation I have with clients is, what is the meaning of sales? What do you think it is? I'll tell you how we define it, because if we're not aligned, we don't do business.
Right. So maybe I'm just putting some pieces together. Part of the reason that you could argue sales has not been in the top flight business schools and studied as an academic discipline is that, it's almost like a chicken and the egg problem, where because it hasn't been studied, it's been sort of left to trade school. And because it's been left to trade school, people have thought, well, I don't really want to study that. And it took a lot of people that had a lot of courage to be able to say, no, talking about sales in the way that you're describing it, which is helping people make progress, listening to them, understanding how do we help give them the right solution, whether or not it's ours, that is a complicated endeavor, and every business does it. It's a massive function. And, now you even have specialized finance within sales. You have specialized operations within sales. I mean, it is wild to me that it hasn't gotten more attention. And so obviously exciting that you're changing that, but
we're
so
trying.
Frustrating because it's
and there's a lot of great people, a lot of great people trying. I mean, it's just,
right.
It's wonderful to watch. I mean, it's such a fun time to be in this arena because it's fun to watch. I give credit to my friend Bob Mesta, who was one of the architects with Clay Christensen of the jobs to be done theory. I mean, that's Bob Mesta's work. I mean, he is, in my judgment, a genius. It is his phrase, helping people make progress in their lives. And I sort of pulled that out of jobs to be done and put it and attached it to sales, because that's how I've always thought of sales. And when he articulated jobs to be done that way, I said, my God, that's the same thing as sales. So there's just a lot of smart people. There's people at Harvard. There's people at Stanford working on this. People at Chicago Booth working on this. Really fun to watch.
Yeah, no,
and to be a part of.
So I want to transition a little bit into, because I feel like I could talk all day about your background in sales, and I mean, we could just be all day there. But I want to talk about the time we met 2 years ago. And it was when I was sharing some of the work we were doing with professional athletics. And I remember you stopping me during me explaining what we were seeing, and that how important sleep is to these high performers, that it affects every aspect of your emotional functioning, your cognitive functioning, your physical functioning. And you stopped me and you pulled out this white 3-ring binder with a bunch of different deals in it that you had seen all in the sales space. And I'm going to stop there. And I just want to say, what led you to be so interested in this topic when, I think there's many, sales leaders listening to this and that have heard our pitch or seen a cold email from us that are like, sleep sales? Are you kidding me? That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard of. Why is it so interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you are magnetic, so that there was that playing out. I'm literally seeing this guy for the first time, and we're halfway through the conversation. I'm like, this guy's he's got some unbelievable. He's obviously worked very hard, but he's also got some unbelievable natural talent. So that was just me nerding out on you. The thing that struck me, Jeff, is what we know to be true of salespeople. The greatest among salespeople are the ones that are present to their customers. They're present. And in order, what you were unfolding in front of me was something that was probably, and I'm giving myself now way too much, I'm hindsight biased now, I'm rewriting history. So I'm giving myself way too much credit, but there was something in the back of my head that I knew that, because I've developed a lot of discipline over the years. And one of them is sleep, as you now know, because we're friends. But I was seeing the academic side of it And what you were doing in my brain was making the linkage between what we know to be true about sleep science, what you know, I don't know, you're the expert, what you know to be true about sleep science and what I know to be true about sales. And that is great salespeople, they are present, they listen, they empathize, which literally means to feel with. That word means to feel with. And lest anyone listening to this thinks this, I get fired up about this, lest you think this is soft stuff, it ain't soft. There is tons of research over decades that indicates that those who are more empathetic, those who are better listeners, those who are truly present, and that means all kinds of things, they are the ones that win, period. And and what you were doing, Jeff, real time in my brain was making that linkage. And I went, oh my God, every sales organization needs this. And again, back in their backs of their brains, they know they need this. They know they need to show up as their best self in every moment of every day. Because that's the other thing that we always have to keep front and center of salespeople. We are doers. We're out there. We're the ones doing most of the meetings in a week, in a function. We do meetings and they're all different. You can't predict them. And so we have to be our best. So we are, I always say to salespeople, we are the elite athletes of our profession. We're the elite athletes. We're the ones on the field.
Oh yeah. I mean, and the score in sales is, it's clear in other disciplines, in other areas, but sales is particularly clear. You know how you showed up. It's clear at the end of the day, and it's clear what people are saying about you. So I think it is this, everything is left on the field. It's incredibly emotional. And, one of the things that we've seen in that tie between sleep and the behaviors that go into selling well are that, sleep is one lever that you can control that basically makes you more empathetic, more present, able to ask better questions. And this stuff we've known for 100 years. Like, it's not new. And so it is just, like you're starting the Kellogg Sales Institute, in many ways, it's just, how do we make sure that we get the right people to be thinking about how important sleep is as a lever to sales success? And there are many levers, but this is just the one that's going to have the biggest return. And so I guess with that, I am really interested in learning from you about, and this could be in sales. It doesn't just have to be in sales, but just, you're doing a lot every day and you have so many different things to juggle. What's the one thing that you do that you find has the biggest return on how you perform day in, day out? And it's not just work, but with your family, being present with your kids and wife. Like, what have you found makes the biggest impact?
For me in my life, Jeff, it's something I learned after I left IBM. It took me a while to acquire this. It had to go through its progression of knowledge. Like I had to figure it out, and then I had developed the skill, and now it's a discipline. And it's super simple. Get up early. I mean, I literally mean what I'm about to say. If I can give my kids one thing, my two kids one thing, it's getting up early. It's literally changed my life. It's given me everything I have. And the reason for that, and again, this sounds soft, maybe sounds like a throwaway. It's not at all, because a lot of things have to be true for me to get up early. I got to take care of myself. I got to work out. I got to get sleep, and as you've taught me about sleep debt, like I now understand that much better than I did before I met you. I didn't understand it at all. I just had developed this rhythm, and now I know why it works. Because if I get up early and I can move a bunch of stuff that is the detritus, that is the noise of my daily life, of our daily lives, if I can get through that and move it to the side, then I can be truly present for people. And that's made all the difference. It's made all the difference.
And so I want to break that down a little bit. So when you say wake up early, so obviously you're getting enough sleep, you're waking up early. Yep. When you wake up, what does that routine look like from, alarm goes off or, sun comes up, your eyes open? What does it look like from there to when kind of your day starts?
Yeah. So I have a routine, and it's by the way, in the COVID era, it's the exact same routine. So it doesn't change, other than having to go get on a plane. I don't do that anymore. And I travel a lot, or used to.
A lot.
So that's gained me a bunch of really interesting hours in the day, or some. But my routine, I'm up at 4:45, 5 o'clock, which sounds early. It's not. Because what I don't do is, and again, these are just personal choices. So I hope it doesn't come across as judgmental. I'm not watching TV at night. Just don't do that. right?
Yeah.
I read, that makes me fall asleep often. I go to sleep early. I get up early. And then what I tend to do is I will work out. Did this very morning when I actually went swimming this morning. So I swam
So,
this morning
and do you
and I'll
get
have
outside most often? Like, is your exercise typically outside in the morning?
yeah. So what,
Okay.
so yes and no. So again,
Okay.
this is a little bit different now in the COVID era, but so I spent a lot of my time outside because I live in a rural area. And so I go and swim because we live on
Okay.
a lake. So I swim in the lake.
So
And in a normal time, I have a gym in my house. And so I go downstairs, you know, if it's cold, I go downstairs and hit the gym and do a workout of some sort. And even on days I'm not feeling it, and I'm not a nut. Like I
yeah.
do work out almost every single day, but I'm not a nut about it. Like it's
Yeah.
not a 2-hour like monster workout.
Grueling.
You can tell I'm a skinny guy, right?
Yeah.
But I take really good care of myself. Thanks to my wife and family and my partner who is my wife. We eat really well. You know, it's just all those things sort of the puzzle starts to link together,
Yeah.
but it really begins with the habit that the knowledge, skill, and then discipline that would then became a habit of getting up early, because then that was the forcing function that made all this other stuff be true. Like if I can
That's
function
super
at 5
interesting.
o'clock in the morning, and now in the COVID era, which is interesting, it's allowed me to do like literally tonight, Jeff, I have a session where I have to be full on energy at 9 o'clock tonight for a workshop to Asia Pacific, because now I can get up early and do one to EMEA, and I can stay up late and do one to APAC. Now I can't do that every night because it starts to affect my sleep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to give every listener just a play-by-play, because I think what you've shared is so interesting from a sleep science and circadian science standpoint. And so I actually want to walk it through, because I think the wisdom of your routine just fits so perfectly with, I think, what the science of sleep has shown. And so when you think about, we talk about sleep debt and circadian rhythm as the two big ideas, right? And if you want to improve your performance, you've got to either get your sleep debt down, or you've got to work when the best with your circadian rhythm. Now, if you think about your schedule for a moment, let's just take when you wake up. So you wake up, and the first thing you do is, if you can, it's get outside and work out.
Yeah.
Now, what's really interesting about that time is that first 90 minutes of waking up, you're chemically drunk. Your brain has a bunch of adenosine built up and you're tired. And the fact that you're actually going out and doing workout is doing two things for you. One is the sunlight is actually telling your circadian rhythm it's a new day and giving you a very strong signal. And so that's actually making your night easier to fall asleep without you even thinking about it. The other thing that it's doing is, while you're at a low capacity cognitively and emotionally, you're working out. And so you don't need to be at full functioning emotional and cognitive capacity to work out. So you're taking advantage of that time to do something that's lower capacity. The other beautiful thing is that the exercise you're doing is also masking any of the feeling of grogginess that you're going to have. And so probably by the time you finish your workout, you're just ready, charged up to go through your day. And it's because of those combination of your circadian systems actually alerting you, saying, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. And you've got that energy from the exercise you're doing. And so not only is that routine helping you that night get to sleep at the right time, but also really helping you ramp up to have then your peak moment, that morning, just be primed. And so I think it's in terms of like, when people ask, how do you manage your energy? And obviously sleep isn't just about sleep. It's about really your energy during the day. I found for myself, and actually one of the reasons Chicago is so challenging for me, is that during the cold months, it's just hard to get outside. It's just,
it is.
and exercise, it's 15 degrees out and now it's warm. It's such a pleasure to get out. And so I get out in the morning, I run, and not only is it helping me that night, but helping me that day and using that inertia time for something low capacity. So when you say that, those are all the things in my mind of like, wow, there's a lot of depth of, wisdom behind what you do. And there's a lot of science that agrees with, what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, this is stuff, I love it. I mean, this is stuff you've taught me over the last couple of years, which is so fun. The one thing you're making me think, which is, I'm constantly learning. So I'm learning about sales, I'm constantly learning, I'm learning about sleep. One of the things I've figured out, and yesterday actually was a good example, I had a ton of just thinking work to do. So it wasn't I had some calls, but it was mostly just sit down and build some learning designs for some clients. And so it's a lot of thinking work and going to books on my Kindle and reading a passage and then going and trying to make it work. and all that
Okay.
sort of stuff. And I'd done my morning routine, got up, swam, whatever. It was in the middle of the afternoon. I was just grinding. And again, this is all new to me. So I'm learning how to be better at, and under normal Craig would have just like, I just power through. Like, I just got to figure this out. And I
Yep.
know, I got to believe, I don't know, but I got to believe my work productivity just, like my intellectual rigor just goes down. So I
Yep.
got up yesterday. And again, this is the luxury of Chicago summer rather than
Yep.
winter. I swam again. And it wasn't hardcore. I was just mostly splashing around, like just got
Yeah.
out, got my breath going a little bit,
Yep.
got wet,
Yeah.
came in, took a shower, got back to work. I felt like it was 5:30 in the morning because
Yeah.
I felt completely fresh. And so I'm trying to get better at that
Interesting.
rather than just A, powering through, or B, which I haven't done in a long time, but I used to, like, go have another cup of coffee or a snack or something. That never works. That never turns out
Yeah.
well. Is
Yeah.
to do a walk, or it doesn't have to be a hardcore exercise, something like that.
Yeah. No, it's totally just to get that reset of focus and work, um and even, again, can you start to play? I would imagine for you, like 1 to 3, because you're an earlier person, or actually even earlier, around now to maybe 2:30 might be your
Yeah.
lull time. But then you start kind of peaking up again around maybe 4:30 to 7, 8 o'clock, and then you probably start getting tired again.
Yeah.
So obviously we'd have to look at your data, but yeah, that's on that side. So that's really the bulk, I think, of what for me was really interesting. I think we talked about your background, what it was like at IBM. I think some of the big takeaways there around human-centered selling, how that's not new, but maybe coming
Not
back
new.
in vogue. And then the importance of sleep, that it really powers what it means to be a good salesperson. And it's such a controllable lever. And that is kind of filtered into something that for you has been so critical. And maybe on next time, I'd love to talk about, obviously, the results we had with this Fortune 200. So
Oh my
exciting to
gosh.
see. Uh,
It just,
I think,
it's
yeah.
what I wonder is when everybody else, and you and I are trying to push this, but when everybody else is going to figure that out? Because
Yeah.
the results are ridiculous
The
and
results are
amazing.
ridiculous.
And you knew that in your gut, 4 years ago when you got,
Yeah.
5 years ago when you started thinking about this, and the rest of us are catching up to you, but we got a long way to go. I mean, there's a lot of sales organizations that could, that would directly benefit, like this Fortune 200 you're referencing, to
Yeah.
just see that lever is long. It's got a lot of leverage.
And I'm very curious. The one thing before I let you go is thinking about the results there. Have you seen any? We did really rigorous analysis. We brought in a statistician from U Chicago who's now at ASU. Really worked closely with the sales compensation team. Worked really closely with sales leadership to get it set up right. Have you seen any other tool in sales, any other approach? I mean, even the challenger sale be like studied in an academic, causal type of way? I mean, is that new? Is it not? Obviously for us, it's natural because that's how we run as a company, but have you seen that?
So the short answer is no. I mean, bits and pieces, Jeff, have been studied, of course, and there's some research on that, but no, and it's never been, what I am not aware of is a lever as simple and clean as sleep having that big of an impact. Because think about your 1,000-person sales organization. Sales luckily gets tons of resources. So there's training, there's sales enablement tools, there's sales finance, as you mentioned. There's all kinds of, there's incentive compensation, obviously. There's all those sorts of things. One lever that is so simple and clean as that, to have it in big debt, I'm not aware of one. No, I'm not.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I'm excited about, and hopefully we can share more as we start to get the paper published and talk more about it, is even just some of the methods that we use to get some of that causal, because everyone says, well, how do you know it's sleep and not just the training and everything else we're doing? And those are really great questions, but statisticians have figured out how to do the causal inference well. Obviously it's still tricky and nuanced. It's not easy.
Sure.
But I think one of the things to me that was so exciting about this is bringing all the right minds together that understand it and be able to say, yeah, it's actually this lever called sleep debt, and that has an impact. And I think the more that teams realize that, not only is it going to help the sales organization, but hopefully help people be better. And that's the thing that keeps us going, certainly. And I know keeps you going.
Oh, it sure does. And, I must say it adds as I said, I'm learning all the time. I mean, this informs how I show up for my MBA and executive MBA students. So when I say, you should sleep, now I have research. I mean, it's not just a throwaway comment where they're like, yeah, well, of course I should sleep. Right. I can say, no, let's unpack this a little further. That's my job in a classroom, is to unpack things and get down to the research foundation and then build them back up and then practice. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely key.
So anyway, it's just been so much fun.